Yo, 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 what's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast. It is episode 34. However, it feels like episode 1. This is the first episode of Fearless Evolution. Previously, I called the podcast Find Your Path. When I went to upload it to Spotify, other distribution services, turns out there is a Find Your Path already, and they're like 70 to 100 episodes deep. I don't really recall, but little adversity. I was like, dude, I got to change the name. No problem. Switch the name up. Fearless Evolution is a cool title that will inspire some interesting conversation, because I think at every stage and every level of business life, you are constantly reinventing yourself, and you're constantly taking on new challenges and breaking through new limiting beliefs. So like that fearless evolution of yourself, I think, is going to stimulate a lot of cool conversations with future guests. And also now I'm becoming more intentional about the podcast. I'm so grateful for all the people that have tuned in and watched or listened to the podcast in the past, where I was just kind of having fun with friends, hanging out and hopefully delivering some value. But I'm going to be super more intentional on delivering value for the time that you spend with me. Super really dope guests coming up, and I'm just excited to share that with the world, with you guys, and I'm grateful for everyone that's tuned in and continues to support the journey. So today I really just wanted to talk about one thing, and that is, I could use the podcast as an example, is just get started, fail forward, and be brave enough to have courage to keep pushing through, because the podcast is a perfect example, right? Like, I started super messy. I didn't have a direction. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just going and just, connecting with people, and it took on a life of itself and impacted in, I made a lot of really cool relationships from it. But I didn't have it distributed to all platforms. I didn't have the right name, right? I wasn't as intentional as I am now. I'm just failing through it. And I think a lot of times people don't even get started, right? Like, because whatever voice in your head, whatever thing that you tell yourself, a lot of the times it's fear of criticism. There's a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. It talks about the 6 fears that plague mankind. Fear of ill health, fear of loss of life, fear of loss of love, fear of criticism, fear of poverty, and fear of, I always have trouble with the last one, whatever it is. But those are the major fears that plague all of mankind. Every single man has these fears. And one of the big ones, top to the list, I think it's like 2 or 3, is fear of criticism. And this fear is a very just like deadly, poisonous, undercover fear. It shows up in all kinds of different ways, where it's, oh, I need it to be perfect. Oh, I need this. Oh, I need that. I need to do this in a certain manner. I need to revise it. I need whatever, right? It shows up very incognito. You don't really even know that it's happening, but it prevents you from taking a lot of risks, taking action, starting messy. There's a saying, throw shit at the wall until it sticks, right? But also you want to be intentional. Once you throw that piece of, feces on the wall and it sticks, like, try to do more of the things that stick. But be brave in just getting started. I think a lot of people get hung up and they never even get started. They never get it going. And again, I'm a prime example of starting messy, getting dirty, failing forward. And when you don't realize you're failing when you're doing the action, right? It's not until you learn new information or you look backwards and you see, oh, maybe I should have did something different, where you define it as a failure. But in the moment, you think you're doing the best thing you possibly can. And that's fine. Like, to me, I tell my staff and everyone I work with, like, when we're on shoots, like complicated sets, actors, a lot of lighting, a lot of people involved, and it's just like, oh man, like, you feel a big, like a mountain you have to climb. There's a lot of pressure, there's client, like, right, whenever there's a situation like that, like a big goal, and it looks like a mountain, and it looks like, whoa, I don't know how I'm going to do that, right? It's a little intimidating when you do decide to embark on it and then, take the first step, because you see the mountain for the first time. You got your hiking boots, you're like standing in front of it, and you're like, oh crap. And then a lot of people stop there. They're like, all right, well, maybe this mountain's not the one. And what I tell my people is, let's create some momentum, right? Like, let's not worry about doing it right. Let's not worry about making sure it's perfect. Like, let's just get some momentum. Let's hit record. Let's film some times. Let's throw something at the wall. Let's just get some momentum. And as you have fun, you start having momentum. You get the ball rolling. You see what's working, what's not working. You get that it's hard to stop. It's physics. It's like a body in motion stays in motion, right? So like once you get the motion, it's hard for it to stop. And so just get started. Just get it in motion. Fail forward. Who cares if you look silly? Like obviously your very first attempt at anything is not going to be the best, right? Like Michael Jordan, first time he picked up a basketball, did not have like all the championship rings. He just had to pick up the basketball and just get started. Just get good at dribbling. Just get a shot off, right? Like, and then it evolves, and then a body in motion stays in motion. So for whatever your goal, dream, and desire, it doesn't have to be a podcast, doesn't have to be content, doesn't have to be anything in that realm. It's just like whatever it is, get started and go. Now, here's a caveat. Something that I've seen in a pattern, and recently, I saw this pattern in somebody else. Now, I also just recently finished a book called The Law of Human Nature. One of the chapters talks about how it's an optical illusion for us to see our own flaws. Like, we don't see it. It's like how you don't see your nose every time that you're looking through your eyes because your eyes bypass it and bridge the gap and create a seamless view, HD, wide angle view. But there's a gap in between your eyes and there's a nose there, but you don't see it. It's an optical illusion. And so your brain does that for you. Your brain also doesn't let you see your flaws. It's an optical illusion. And that's why I think marriage is so important, because you guys mirror each other. She tells you what you're doing wrong. You tell her what she's doing wrong. And even though it's uncomfortable sometimes, right, and you need to get better at communicating that, it shows you what you're doing wrong, and it kind of helps bridge that optical illusion gap. Now, I saw this pattern tying back to like the getting started and all that. I saw this pattern emerge in somebody else, and I'm not going to call them out, but they started a project or started a thing. It was whatever. Let's just call it that. Started a thing. It was to better themselves through a program with a group, right? And they committed to it, right? They took that level of commitment, invested in it, but then whatever challenges they ran into, they didn't see success in that community, in that group, in that program. Somehow they created bad energy between people in the group, and they started to say that it was everybody else around them, right? And yeah, it was a bad investment, it was a bad this, the people, whatever, right? But if we diagnose it, they committed to something, but they didn't see it through till the end. Started creating bad friction inside the environment, and then left on bad terms. Now, that same person, I hired them for a situation. Now, I didn't feel like they provided the value that I paid them for. I also feel like they weren't truthful about their hours, or however, like whatever the case is, right? Like the value exchange for what I paid, I didn't feel like it was accurate. And so then they left, somehow started creating negative friction around me, like I'm the problem, right? And I did what I did, created friction. But the problem, like when we're diagnosing it deeper, in both situations, they quit, right? They left. And they quit the other thing. Both situations, they didn't see it through to the end, and there was challenges involved in them. In both situations, they didn't see it through. They placed blame on other people and created friction and had a negative exit. Now, when you don't see things through, like when you see a mountain and then you climb, you take a few steps and you're like, oh, this is hard. The mountain sucks. Like, this mountain's terrible, right? Like, and you blame the mountain, you're never going to get anywhere. Like, every endeavor, every dream, every desire, everything that you, every action you take, every dream is going to have obstacles. Like, there's no way that you're just going to, like, just freaking go straight up the mountain. The reason it's a mountain is because there's friction, like gravity's against you, there's rough terrain, you have to put force and energy to get up and over the mountain. And that's why it's a relevant milestone or a significant thing to talk about when you get to a mountain, because you've pushed through enough friction and resistance to get to somewhere that has a view or something substantial, something you could talk about, right? You got to your goal, dream, or desire. And on the way, there's always going to be a challenge, a failure, a thing to overcome. Like, it's almost like that's when you decide to commit to a thing, you need to look at it as if it's just a challenge. Like, what's the next like challenge to overcome? And you keep overcoming challenges until you get to your desired outcome. And you see it through even if the sky falls down. Like, that's what determines if it's going to be a success or not, is if you say, no matter what happens, I'm going to get to the end of it. I don't care what I have to do to get to the top of the mountain, I'm going to get there. And I don't care if it takes 10 years, 5 years, a year, a week, or a month. And I don't care if I have to dig a hole, plant a tree, climb, whatever I have to do, I'm going to do it. And that's with every goal, dream, or desire. Like, I'm going to start a business. I don't care what challenges I'm going to have to overcome. I'm going to do it, right? I personally went bankrupt twice, essentially. Once officially, the second time it wasn't a official bankrupt, but I failed and just devastated my entire life 2 times, leveraging all of my resources on a goal, dream, and desire. And I got to as far as I could of that thing. And each time I learned a truth. I learned a lesson. But now that I have some level of success, right, I didn't stop after the first bankruptcy. I didn't stop after the second failure. They were both equally catastrophic. Like, lost everything, like transportation, house, relationships, all the money I had, everything, complete resets. I continued to keep going, right? Because no matter what, I committed to the outcome. And whatever it is, whether you're starting a podcast, whether you're starting to build a personal brand, whether you're starting a business, whether you're starting, running marathons, whatever your goal, dream, or desire is, so long as you're brave enough to overcome the fear of criticism or any fear that you have that prevents you from taking action, then you take the action and understand that you are going to run into challenges, you are going to be faced with friction, tension, gravity, and you have to overcome it until you get to the peak or to your desired outcome, and you commit to that, you will see success. It doesn't matter the time frame. It doesn't matter anything. As long as you commit to that and you see it through all the way to the end until you see success, you will reach your desired outcome. Now, the first episode of Fearless Evolution, I didn't anticipate it to go in this direction, but if you have listened this far, hopefully you know who I am. If you don't know who I am, my name is Oscar Cardona. I own it's hard to label it, but it's like a social media content agency. We also do marketing, so we do everything from producing content. Even before that, we script it, brainstorm it, produce the content, edit it, post it across all your social media platforms. We do the social media management, and we also run marketing, advertising to drive traffic to your offers to help convert business. So that's Pathfinder Productions. Recently, we opened a podcast studio called The Pod Place to podcast in Las Vegas. And both of those endeavors have been extremely rewarding and exciting for me. So that's what I do, and we're expanding and growing the mission, the vision, and everything in between. So follow, subscribe to the channel, whatever platform you're listening to this on, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. I have some incredible guests coming on. I can't wait for you guys to hear their stories, and until next time, we'll see you. Peace.